Hi, welcome to M-Software's InCatalog Quick Start video tutorial series. In this first video, we are going to have a quick look at InCatalog's interface, talk a bit about data, and set a couple of preferences so that we'll be ready for the next video. The second tutorial video will cover updating InCatalog links. The third will cover creating InCatalog links on text and image content in an InDesign document. And the fourth will cover updating data, or pushing changes that are made to linked content in the InDesign document back out to the data file. So let's get started. If you've not already done so, please take a moment and download the tutorial files. You'll find a link to these in the Learn section of the InCatalog webpage. When you unzip the archive, you'll find that the folder contains a couple of InDesign documents and their associated IDML documents, in case you're using an older version of InDesign, a folder of some images, and a few data files. And we'll be using these files throughout this series of tutorials. I'm going to begin by opening up my Cat1 InDesign document. When you install InCatalog into InDesign, you'll notice that it adds an InCatalog menu to InDesign's menu bar. In this menu are most of the commands that we'll be working with InCatalog, and we'll be covering quite a few of these in this series. This document actually contains some InCatalog links. You can see these right now as these gray brackets surrounding my bits of placeholder text, and also the gray brackets on the image frames themselves. This gives me an opportunity to talk about the first preference I'd like to set, the link color. If you go under the InCatalog menu, down at the bottom we have Preferences, and up at the top of that we have User Interface. I like my link markers to stand out. So under User Interface, there are some things up at the top that make linking fun and easy, but at the bottom we have Link Marker Color. I like to make mine nice and bright. I'm going to make my link markers red. Now they stand out a whole lot better. If you don't want to see these all the time, you can use the toggle in the InCatalog menu to hide them, or to show them to turn them back on. Or you can simply toggle in and out of preview mode within InDesign. The link markers are non-printing. The other bit of the interface is found at the top of the InCatalog menu. There's a command that says Show Data Linker. And if I click that, my data linker pops up. And you'll notice that that turns into Hide Data Linker because it is a toggle. You can show it, you can hide it. The data linker gives us information about the links. I can put my cursor in here and find out various things about it. There are some controls for doing fancier things with links that we're not going to cover in this series, but can also be found in the manual. And there are some update controls at the bottom of this as well. So we'll be using this throughout the video series quite a bit. We're almost ready to go, but before we do, we need to set some data preferences. And before we set our data preferences, we need to talk a minute about data. I'm going to open up the VeggieAdd spreadsheet. Let's make this a little bit bigger. When we're talking about data, we talk about rows and we talk about columns. Another name for a row in data parlance is a record. And a row or a record is a collection of all the bits of information about a particular thing. And we also have columns. Another name for a column is a field. A column contains all of the same type of information about a particular thing. This column contains all of the product names. This column contains all of the description. This column contains all of the product numbers. So in data, we have rows, we have columns. InCatalog also requires each record have a key value. A key value is content in a field that will uniquely identify that row to InCatalog. It can be something like a product number. These are all unique in this data file. It could be something like a page position. It could be something like a SKU. So we have rows, we have columns. Some data has a header row in it. The header actually contains the names of the fields or the names of the columns. Some data does not have a header row in it. So we'll need a way to tell InCatalog what are the columns in this particular data. Also, InCatalog doesn't import data from a spreadsheet. It requires a text file. And these are generally either tab delimited or comma delimited text files. This is that same data in a tab delimited text file. If I show the tab characters in this data, you'll see all these little triangles pop in. So all these triangles are separating the columns in here. So when we tell InCatalog the data is tab separated, it'll be able to use that to figure out which column is which. The other option is comma separated, or a CSV file. And in this case, you'll see that there are commas separating all of the various columns in our data. You say, well, what if there are commas within a column? Well, in that case, they generally surround those columns with double quotes, so that tells InCatalog everything in between these double quotes, commas and all, even returns, are in the same field. So data can be tab delimited, it can be comma delimited. For the purposes of these tutorials, we're going to be working with tab delimited data, so we need to tell that to InCatalog. And we also, as I mentioned, need to tell InCatalog what the names of the columns are in case we don't have columns in there. And the way to do that is in this little file called a data descriptor. And we'll be talking about how to set these up in the next video. But a data descriptor is just a little text file that contains all of the names of our columns. And there's a tab, if we show my invisibles here, there's a tab in front of each of these product names. And I've got one other thing going on in here. I've got a little K next to the page position. That's telling InCatalog this is going to be my key field. So now we're all set to tell InCatalog everything we need. We need to tell it, we're going to use tab delimited data. We need to tell it these are the names of our columns. So let's go back to our InCatalog menu. And the first thing we're going to do is go down to the preferences at the bottom in my data snapshot and say, this is going to be tab delimited by default. InCatalog comes as comma delimited. So we want to make sure this says tab delimited and with unquoted fields checked, because by and large, our fields are unquoted. And it's Macintosh character set on here. So you can use, if you're working with Mac characters on a window, you can use that. You can use window data on a Mac. You just need to tell that to InCatalog. So I've got those preferences set. I also need to tell InCatalog that my data source is a snapshot file, and when I'm updating, my data destination is also a snapshot file. And then in order to tell InCatalog which columns are which, I say select my data descriptor, so I'll click on that, and I'll choose that food add 1 DD, my data descriptor. I always put DD in the file name, and I'll click open, and then my data linker shows me that set is what is found in there, and I can find all of my columns in my data, in my linker palette. So now we're ready to go. See you in the next video.